September 2nd, 2014, NIS America brings Spike Chunsoft's Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair to North America on the PlayStation Vita. In many ways, this is just like the first, and in many ways, it isn't. This time around, we play as Hajime. Hajime, much like our previous protagonist, was on his way to a life of promise and possibility at Hope's Peak Academy, when life took a sudden turn for the strange and unimaginable. Hope's Peak Academy, it seems, is not in his future. Instead, seemingly out of nowhere, we are transferred to a new location. Danganronpa 2 takes place on a tropical island resort. A strange setting when you consider the horrors that are about to unfold here. But this is one of Danganronpa's biggest draws. A sunny backdrop for dark and twisted scenarios, sprinkled with humor that would feel misplaced if it was done in any other way. A stark yet alluring contrast between hope and despair, happiness and hopelessness, comedy and tragedy. Upon arriving at the tropical island, we are introduced to our new cast of students and Usami. Usami instructs the students to make friends, enjoy the tropical paradise, forget about the world outside of the island, and just have fun. Though many indulge in this paradise, the indulgence is short-lived. Monokuma bursts onto the scene, completely sidelining Usami, and outlines the new rules for the island and for the student body. Just like the previous games, these students are going to be forced into a terrible killing game. Following a strict set of rules, the students are confined to the island unless they can murder one of their classmates and not get caught. If they're caught for the murder, then they get executed. If they are not caught, then they get set freed, and everybody else is killed instead. Although they can do their best to just live life and ignore the killing game, Monokuma will periodically provide motives encouraging murders to occur. On top of this, there's a strange bomb-like device on the island counting down to God knows what. If this is indeed a bomb, then the students have a limited amount of days to get off the island before the whole thing is blown to high heaven. The motivations this time around didn't feel as strong as they did in Danganronpa 1, but they do the trick to set up the murders, and I have to say the murders definitely feel like an improvement. Danganronpa 1 unfortunately left some clues that made the murders too obvious for the player at times, and while whodunit isn't usually as important as how they done it, leaving both of them a mystery to be uncovered gives you that much more bang for your buck. When murders occur, you're given a small window of time to investigate the crime scene and take testimonies from your classmates. The information you uncover here is then stored as truth bullets, which work as your evidence for the upcoming class trials. When in class trials, you go head-to-head and work with all of your other classmates to uncover the mystery, going over every possibility until you can say beyond a shadow of a doubt who done the murder and how. This is done through a series of minigames and conversation. Most of these arguments happen through non-stop debates, which work the same as the previous entry. All of your classmates will talk back and forth to work through small portions of the big problem. Pay attention to the arguments your classmates make. If you have a piece of information to back them up or to disprove their claim, you load the corresponding truth bullet into the cylinder and fire away. Sometimes, even if you do disprove an argument, a classmate will still try to fight back. In these moments, you enter something called a rebuttal showdown. This is a one-on-one war of words. As your opponent shouts ludicrous claims at you, you use the touchscreen or direction buttons to simply slice them to pieces. But don't go ham with your swipes. They are limited. After a while, your opponent will say something that you know to be false. Load up the truth sword the same way you would load up a truth bullet and cut them down to size. Panic Talk action also returns with little to no changes. Simply hold X to lock onto your opponent's arguments and release X in rhythm to destroy them. You reload in a similar fashion. When you've taken down enough arguments, your opponent will launch one final question, and the answer will be presented to you in a scrambled order. Put the answer in the right order, and you put an end to their argument. Hangman's Gambit returns as improved Hangman's Gambit. Letters move onto the screen from left to right. Grab them and combine them with the same letters to stop their motion. Once the motion has stopped, you can choose to destroy the letter or commit it to the word bank. If you commit the wrong letter or a letter in the wrong place, you will take damage. If different letters combine, whether on their own or through some fault of your own, you will also take damage. Entirely new to this game is the logic drive, a strange sort of snowboarding down a half-pipe experience where you avoid pitfalls and obstacles while being asked questions with multiple choice answers. Answers correspond to paths in the road. The wrong path will lead you to a damage-dealing pitfall. After answering 2 or 3 questions correctly, logic drive ends, and you've come to a new conclusion to progress the trial with. These are the mini-games that make up class trials until you believe you've solved it. When you believe you have the whole thing solved, you recreate the murder from start to finish comic book style, by filling in missing panels from the panel bank at the bottom of the screen. When this is all over, the class votes, and the killer is executed. The rest of the students go on to live and murder another day. But murders are only as important as the cast and how much you care about them. So how do they fare compared to our old cast? Though I will have to admit this cast doesn't have the depth of character the previous cast did, their on-screen chemistry is simply wonderful. It takes a while to establish their chemistry, but all good things take time. Similar to Danganronpa 1, you can unlock special abilities to use in class trials and uncover more of each character's history by spending time with them in free time settings between murders. But the biggest moments that shape characters are in relatively hidden scenes. Throughout the game, you gain mono coins by finding hidden Monokumas. You also gain mono coins in the class trials by performing well. These mono coins are used mainly to buy gifts that you can give to other characters in free time periods. But certain gifts costing 50 mono coins will open up additional scenes that do more to shape the characters and relationships than the standard free time periods will. Though many characters don't get that much depth, I'm personally not too hung up on this, as one of my favorite characters is ultimately one of the more shallow ones this time around. This is Nekomaru. Nekomaru is an extreme character. He's always operating at 100%, and he understands the importance of taking a good shit. I can get behind this attitude. Some of my other favorite characters this time around include the comically dark and serious Gundam, the sweet and relatable Chiaki, the righteous Princess Sanya, and the ever-complicated yet hopelessly intriguing Nagito. Nagito's dialogue honestly gets a little grating at times, and will likely make you want to bleach your brain from the overuse of the words hope and despair. But he always carries the investigations in interesting directions, and his role in Case 5 made Case 5 the strongest in the entire series to me. The voice acting both in English and Japanese is fantastic once again, though I don't feel the characterization is always the same across the different languages. Of course, this whole game isn't voiced. Outside of class trials, very little of the game is. So while I feel on individual levels the characters aren't as good as before, they make up for it with how they play off of each other. And it doesn't stop with the students either. Monokuma now has Usami to play off of, and it provides some of the funniest and most pitiful moments in the series. On a technical level, Danganronpa 2 is much improved over the original. The visuals are far cleaner and the stylization is far more realized. To make environments a little less wonky and awkward looking on perspective changes, they've made more use of 3D objects within the 3D space, but there's still no shortage of 2D objects to sell the style on. Sound effects are still on par with the original, and while Danganronpa 1 had a great soundtrack, Danganronpa 2's is even better. This is, however, only because Danganronpa 2 includes all the best songs from the first, with some new great ones. In my Danganronpa 1 review, I showcased Mr. Monokuma's Lesson, which done wonders to encapsulate the offbeat comedy of the series. This time around, I want to highlight Trapped by the Ocean's Scent, which I find really highlights the atmosphere of mystery, intrigue, and hopelessness. Not everything works as intended in this game, however. Sometimes text is going outside of the boxes or off-screen. During one class trial, they randomly dropped in untranslated screenshots of something they showed was translated earlier in the game. Between Danganronpa 1 and 2, it's really hard to say which was better executed. As the game progresses, various new islands become accessible, and some of them are out of this world at times. And while it can create a much more difficult suspension of disbelief, the murders that are made possible through these new areas really require you to scratch at the brain to figure out. I feel Danganronpa 2 has the better murders, visuals, and soundtrack, but Danganronpa 1 definitely had the better setting, atmosphere, and characters. It would be hard to pick the better of the two, but my love of logic puzzles has me leaning towards the second. That said, this is not a game you should play without playing the first. Although most of the game can work as a standalone experience, the final 5 hours will require no shortage of knowledge from the first game. The end of Danganronpa 2 gets kind of big, a little too big for its own good, and can feel a bit ridiculous at times, but it's certainly a marvel of writing capabilities to even pull off the twists this game does. If you're left wanting more than what the main story offers, There is some fun and quirky side content you can unlock at the end, as well as another side game you can play as the game progresses, to show you just how each new island is unlocked. Some of these are kinda bad, but in a way that seems intentional and charming. And really, that's where I'm gonna leave Danganronpa 2. It improves in some areas and takes a step back in others, but still manages to be a crazy roller coaster ride with some of the best murder mysteries, comedy, and cast chemistry. If you guys liked the video, maybe consider supporting the Patreon. Leave a like, leave a comment, share the video if you can. Links to socials are in the description, you guys already know the deal. As always folks, thanks for watching.